Hi guys, welcome to Beyond the Muscle. And yeah, we've got a special episode today because we have Dean Nolan and Joshua Conde joining me as co-hosts for the first time. So this will be fun. And we're going to chat about peak week today. So yeah, a very fun topic, this one. So yeah, what peak week is, what it isn't, a lot of the ins and outs that go into peak week, what makes a good peak, etc. But yeah, how are you guys doing? Have any of you guys been training today? What's yeah, what's new?
I'll go. So I'm not too bad. I'm training in the evenings at the minute,
What do
and
you?
I'm generally feeling very good because I've had last time we spoke, I had a bit of a shoulder issue, which seems to be all but cleared up now. So everything in my world is much better.
Yeah. Good to hear. You had your post-workout meal, Josh. You've been training today, I take it.
Yeah, literally just legs, of course, as well.
Yeah.
Usual
Oh wow.
things really change. Legs on Wednesdays as always, because yeah, routine and creature with literally habits to keep them to
Yeah.
it all the time. So yeah, that's done, and thankfully not too many niggles or injuries here and there. Only thing is, I'm feeling what's going on in the clavicle area for the shoulders because I literally introduced barbell bench press. I haven't done it in a forever. And
Mm.
obviously, of all things to have a novelty stimulus of, yeah, it's just I'm just feeling joints. I'm like, oh gosh, yeah, this feels a bit weird. That's there. But yeah, bringing them back in, seeing what they're gonna be like again. So easing my way back in, but definitely feeling it, even though I did it on Monday still.
Yeah. Nice. Talking about that actually, because you guys are a little bit younger than me. You're Josh. You're almost 40. Dean, you're like 36. Is that right?
Yeah,
36. So yeah, I mean, I'm 41. So within at least like a 5-year window there. I'm noticing now it's not so much injuries, but tendonitis is like almost everywhere. Every single area of my body, there's tendonitis, and yeah, little joint niggles here and there. Have you guys noticed like a difference in that as you've got older, or are you not quite at that stage yet?
I'll go first. And again, mine is when I used to roll out of bed in the morning, I would spring out of bed and I'd be like, yeah,
Mm.
I'm fine. I could break into a sprint. I'd be okay. But nowadays, I need like a warm up just to get out of bed and not feel like any aches and stuff. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, it's pretty much the same. It's yeah, it starts from the morning. It really is
Yeah.
everything. Like, and it's not even about, oh, I didn't have a good sleep or whatever, because I could even have great sleeps. But if I just wake up wrong, like for some odd reason I
Mhm.
went on my side the wrong way for like 30 minutes before waking up, and then I've just got this little strain, and like, it's just like, and
yeah,
that's it.
yeah,
That's the whole day, and you're just like, blooming heck, that's crazy. But yeah, same. I literally have to do warm-ups in the morning before I even get to the gym, all that kind of stuff, like, just to get things moving and all that. And then,
Yeah.
like you were saying, Anthony, as well, yeah, 100%, like literally little niggles. You just
Mm.
actually notice them more. Whereas before, you probably didn't even, like, yeah, whatever, this is that. Like, I could be sitting in the car or on a train and my knees, I'm like, okay, something, oh, yeah, let me stretch out my leg. Let me do this. Like, just all
Yeah.
those things. Yeah, it's just, yeah, it's
Yeah.
fun.
No, yeah, definitely can relate. This is going to turn into like an old man podcast, pensioners podcast, isn't it? Really, but
I
yeah,
want to get on with
yeah.
it.
A risk of doing so. Let's discuss peak week. So yeah, I think what is peak week? And I think at this point, when you get to a peak week, like 99% of the work is done, right? You should be at looking at your very best, and it's just a case of like showcasing the physique and yeah, refining things here and there. It's not a phase where you're going to see drastic changes. Having said that, when I did like a carb deplete in my first, because I've obviously competed in 2015 and then 2024 with Josh coaching me. When I competed in 2015, I did a carb deplete. I did notice a difference. Like the physique looked a little bit sharper for me when I first depleted carbs. Definitely flatter, and I'd say on balance, like a worse look before I reintroduced carbs again. But there was a difference there. But apart from that, there's not much change. And looking at photos, because I often look at photos of last year, like throughout prep. Some of them are with high carbs, some with low carbs. We did a carb deplete last year as well for the first show. And yeah, there aren't crazy, crazy visual changes. Like for me, I can't look at pictures and say, oh yeah, that's from peak week. So yeah, I think people need to understand that have never competed or are new to competing that it's not like a magic wand that's going to transform your physique. Yeah, it's refining. It's yeah, doing what you've done before. But yeah, Josh, obviously you coach me and you've coached numerous other athletes. What would your like description of like a peak week be?
I mean, yeah, I mean, you've really hit the nail on the head, which is, I think a lot of people really do hang on it being such a big difference maker, when really and truly it shouldn't be. It should literally just be refining, like literally just whatever your best look is, you're trying to just make sure you bring in that at the right time, basically. And you would have already known throughout the prep, like how certain your body looks at certain points, etc. You mentioned we I mean, we literally discussed it. I remember I was calling you like around 6 weeks out from your first show, going, we'll probably, I want to try this,
Mm.
let's try this rapid backload, let's see, we go with a proper deplete, this is that. I think was it 3 days or was it a 4 day deplete? I'm trying to remember now. It was
Yeah.
one of the more aggressive ones, basically. Also, I did bear, and I also did say, even though we're not even fully ready as well, because that's the other thing, was your qualifier. We weren't
Mm.
trying to go, we weren't 100% yet, but it was just to see how your body responds. And I think clearly from there, it wasn't that it was just like, no, no, never do it. It was also just really understanding the fact that you were never really in the right place, anyways. Because I remember
Mm.
going into that week, a lot of fatigue was built up, as well. Your body was just it was not the best place to respond. And then we ended up with a look where it was like, it probably wasn't even your best and that for your Southern qualifier leading up to the prep because of that simple fact that we tried something and you just looked like you were just a little bit spilled. But I think it was just more because your body was just still not really relieved of all that stress that you were
Yeah.
under going into it. And then obviously for the remaining shows, your better looks. It wasn't because okay the peak was amazing. No, it was because you were ready. Like we were actually where we needed to be. And from there, we also knew what we need to do in regards to making sure we bring that look. And we noticed we didn't really need depletions at that point because we were actually really there. So we're like, we'll just basically do a normal, literally a little bit of a low day. Was it one day we even did? And then literally then ramp things up for 2 days. And that was another other thing as well. We realized your body doesn't like an aggressive, carb load. It likes a bit of
Mm.
a, slow, steady as well. And for there, on show day, easily you can just keep holding that and throughout the whole day, no matter what time.
Yeah.
Was it your second show? Was it 11 p.m. You went on stage or
Yeah, it
whatever?
was really late.
Oh,
Second, and
11 p.m.
then yeah, and then fourth show I think as well. It
yeah,
was split between two, and it was also like 11 p.m. And
exactly.
yeah, the look still held.
That was the great thing though, knowing that your body you could do that. Like it would, no matter what we woke up with, we could actually pretty much hold all the way through, which was really good. But yeah, if that wouldn't happen if you're not ready. So I think that's the main thing for me. What peak week is not, which is the game changer.
Mm.
Even though I know a lot of people preach it, and even some people I really look up to, like Cliff, everybody knows, he's great. I really look up to him. Like honestly, like I would love to pick his brain. If I could have like a whole day with him to just fully pick his brain and everything. However, when it comes to the whole peak week that he's so on about, I'm just like, yeah, I don't know, buddy. I don't know. Like you even put up the pictures and the stories and everything, and I'm like. That just looks like lighting to me, buddy. But anyway, we'll see. Consider that there. So yeah, that's just me personally. I don't hold that much on it. Like I do not pin my hopes on that. However, the flip side for competitors competing against my clients, I hope they do what I think they're doing, which is holding their hat on it, which usually
Mm.
they're gonna mess things up and not look their best. I've been seeing all on Instagram leading up, and then come show day, I'm like, oh, we got you. Thanks. Like,
Mhm.
hey, this is I don't know what you did, but thanks. So yeah, that's just literally me personally. So yeah, I don't know about you, Dean.
Yeah, I'd agree. I'm glad we're all in agreement. Just expanding on what you guys said. So the analogy I think that gets thrown around a lot is it's like landing a plane, and obviously you want like a smooth landing. You don't want like a mass loads of you don't want to crash land basically. So you from a very simplistic or like binary like definition, it's manipulating some physiological and psychological variables to try and like just sharpen that look for show day. But for sure, I don't like placing a lot of pressure or importance on it. And the emphasis when I'm speaking with clients is always the work is done beforehand. And then this is like the final like 5%, maybe 10%, but like final 5% just coasting in. And yeah, trying to take that pressure off them, especially because I think the psychological component gets overlooked sometimes. But going in there, managing stress and trying to bring that best look for sure.
Yeah, that's a good point. The psychological component, yeah, and obviously stress is the big one there, isn't it? Trying to reduce that, and I think yeah, we'll talk about like training for peak week a bit later on as well. So I think there's a few different ways you can go with training, but
Mhm.
the general view is yeah, a bit less volume than usual, certainly less intensity, and yeah, a nice easy week, I suppose, going into show day would be ideal. In terms of like misconceptions, obviously we've kind of covered a few there. Yeah, obviously one of them is that it will drastically alter your look because it just simply won't. It can alter it in a bad way if you go do some crazy shit in prep. It can definitely do that. But if you're doing what you have been doing, it's not going to do anything crazy. One thing I will say though is the novelty factor. I think it's nice in a way to do something a bit different. So you might do like even on like the peaks we did, there were more carbs than I'd consume in like a typical refeed day. And I think the novelty factor can be quite fun for an athlete because if you're used to eating the same way for the entirety of prep, eating a little bit differently during peak week can be quite a fun thing, I guess.
I,
Um, yeah.
I think you get to a point in prep where you're depleted, not necessarily just from the carb depletion, but just generally depleted, where you get to a point where you really those high carb days that you might have, you really look forward to. So I think again, like from a stress management point of view, even if it's not the physiological side of things, if you know psychologically going into it with a high carb day, you look forward to it a bit more, and that might drop some stress as well. So there's
Yeah.
that component as well, but definitely the physical side of things, I think you do get the improvements as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think you both just touched on it there, like in regards to what will be happening. And that's again, just simply because of what slight little changes that are literally also psychologically going to help the client, but also it's just the way the physiology of things, like your body's just going to be responding like this anyway. So like, for example, you were just saying, in regards to, I know we're going to touch on it a bit more, but like the training, but also things like, for example, even with you, Anthony, and yes, you weren't doing direct cardio, but you're doing steps,
Mm,
just us tapering that down, your body was just like, oh yeah, this is great,
mm,
this is that, and then you were starting to get even lighter, at some point. So after like your first load, and it's like your body was like, oh, this is so good, and you're almost down a whole kg, and we're like, oh gosh, we need to give you more, that kind of thing. And that's just again, the fatigue's coming up, is dropping off, the stress is coming off. And then also just things like, even yes, we had the low days before the high carbs. In those old days, those we had the carb, but the fat's a bit higher because again, the simple thing of where we are trying to up your fats because it's probably been a bit depleted throughout the whole of prep. We want
mm.
to make sure the carbs we do put in, it's not a case of it just disappears come show day, after one round of posing because you just, you exerted some energy. We want it to kind of like still hold your fullness and all that. So, making sure we get the fats in. Again, for a client who's been eating the same way for such a long period of time, having a bit higher fats is going to be a bit different. Like, oh, I
Yeah.
need to eat salmon. I need to, I got to use oil with my eggs, all that, this kind of stuff, to try and get that in. So all those little things, I do get it for the client's point of view. And even myself, when I'm doing it, I remember, it was just so like, oh, this tastes so good. I remember, oh,
Mhm.
actually put butter on this, this is that kind of stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
All those little things, or like even in the carb up, oh, I need to use honey. Like, wow, this is that, the things you will never waste, during most of your prep because you want to like obviously make sure everything fills you and everything like that. So yeah, that kind of stuff, 100%. It is a bit different, and it does give you a bit more of like, oh, this is so much different from what I've been doing for about 18 weeks, 20 weeks, etc.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
That
maybe
novelty aspect. Yeah. It's can't be overlooked. Yeah.
yeah, and some misconceptions, I think, kind of alluding to that. One of them that Joshua put in his story maybe a couple of days ago. I feel like I stalk now. Maybe it was a week ago, but about like cutting water, for example. Like people think you need to cut water to look dry, which is great if you do it if you're a competitor or whatever competing against your client. But yeah, that's one of the misconceptions. Another
Yeah.
one with sodium as well, like cutting sodium because you don't want to retain water. That obviously has drastic negative implications. And I think another one probably I know a somewhat misconception, but maybe not by everybody, is sometimes people think they can just endlessly load carbs and load carbs and load carbs. And yeah, that's another like mistaken misconception I think people have.
Yeah. And again, it's like because everyone's different. Oh, like I've recently just got a client where I'm actually starting to notice for the first time where someone who literally I do think could literally eat endless carbs. Like it just I don't know why, but the metabolism is on. I don't know what is going on there, but yeah, it's almost the point where I'm sometimes like, did you really eat that many carbs? Like, are you sure? Like this and that. So yeah, again, now let's say if that person has a great following and is constantly putting out everything about their prep.
Mhm.
Yeah, you can imagine what the carb loading could be for that person, and someone just looking in, going, "Ooh,
That's what you need to do. Yeah, yeah.
wow, what was that? 3,000 grams of carbs before show day. Wow, yeah, I think I should. Yeah, like, if my coach doesn't give me this, what we doing? Like this or that. Whereas that person could be someone who actually just needs 200, which could sound so pitiful, but if that's the way your body responds, now what are you gonna do? That kind of thing. So yeah, 100%. Yeah, there's a lot of misconceptions, and I think for me, I don't know where Anthony wants to go into next, but what I do want to touch on is I really do feel a lot of these problems are because of a lot of these like kind of like phrases and stuff we use in bodybuilding, but then it really shouldn't be for natural bodybuilding. Like,
Mm.
for example, drying out. Can a natural bodybuilder actually dry out? Like, I'm being honest, like like, do we have any of those tools to do that compared to
Mm.
someone who's assisted, who actually, yes, can dry out because there's obviously a lot of actual assistance that can be used to do that. But as a natural athlete, can you actually dry out, or are you actually going to be dry and hard beforehand, anyways? Because
Mm.
you already got that look and it's already there. And literally, come show day, you're just not going to be having so much carbs that you spilled over. Like, surely isn't that what it is? So yeah, things like that. I feel like we need to touch on as well.
Yeah, that's a very good point because
Mm.
these like buzzwords or phrases like drying out, we know like when we hear that, we know what we think of. We're thinking of the assisted guys and we kind of know what, but I never thought about it. But you don't really, I would never say to a client, right, we're going to dry out for the show, as a natural competitor. But yeah, I think a lot of people, like you say, misconceptions, if they're not working with a coach or not informed or whatever it might be, they probably think, right, okay, I need to dry out for this show.
Mm.
And I think what you said a second ago, just to kind of expand on or touch on as well, is I think social media is a problem where they'll see maybe a really successful bodybuilder or an extreme bodybuilder, whatever it might be, in the natural space, doing a certain thing, sharing a certain thing for peak week, and like you say, they'll just think, right, that's what I need to be doing, and then they piggyback onto it, and it doesn't have the same effect because, as we know, there's a lot of individuality there.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah, and people can really be different. That's the thing. Um, I want to, veer on to kind of mistakes we've made. I think this will be a kind of fun area to delve into here, because from misconceptions into mistakes. I'm actually reminded just now, actually, I remember when I did my first show and I was backstage. I was self-coached my first show, so I hadn't, no help at all. I just did the whole prep myself. But I remember being backstage and a guy had just come on from competing. I think he was a teen or a junior, and he said, I'm not feeling, I'm just too watery. And I was I didn't have like a keen bodybuilding eye, but I knew that he was like 2 months out. He was nowhere near ready to be on stage. It wasn't a case of water. It was a case of he just wasn't lean enough. And I think that's when comments like drying out and and being watery are not really applicable. When someone isn't lean enough, they're only really relevant when someone is stage lean, because you can be stage lean and you can be watery, and there is a difference. I think for my first show, I was very very lean, but I was certainly a lot waterier compared to or less dry, should we say, compared to the subsequent shows. But yeah, I think a prerequisite is you just have to get lean enough, and people shouldn't be using that language until they're actually in the kind of stage condition.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, which you both alluded to. Moving on to mistakes, I've certainly made a few, and I want to touch on a little story I made on that first show, because whilst I did well and I won that show. I was like incredibly flat. I remember whilst I coached myself, I did get some advice leading up to that peak week, and the advice was basically carb up for 2 days, and then the day before the show, have oh no, before that it was like a 3 day deplete, 3 or 4 days of depletion, 2 days of carbing up with like moderate carbs, and then one day of like low carbs and low fat. So the day before the show, I was on very, very low calories. I think probably 12 to 1400 calories with low carbs and low fat. And I ended up being very, very flat on prejudging on my first show. And also no water as well. So no water apart from sipping it from the morning of show day, which also led to a really, really flat look, I think.
Yeah.
So I had enough muscle to carry me through and then eventually win the show because I was lean enough. But yeah, that was certainly a mistake I would never make. And I remember thinking, I'm not going to do this same thing with my clients, because I went on to coach the next year. I thought I can't make the same mistake. Because I remember on that show for the evening portion of the show, like I had a good meal in me. I had some water, and I looked a million times better. It was a night and day difference. So yeah, there are certainly some mistakes that can be made. That's just one that I can recall. But I'd be curious to hear some mistakes you've even made or that you've heard. So yeah, what about you, Josh? What have been some of the mistakes you've
I
had?
think that the one you mentioned there is a very common one. Like I've done it myself as well. And it was also just simply understanding what is flat and being full. Because again, that's another thing that a lot of
Mm.
people get a little bit wrong. But yeah, it's being flat. Well, 100% is one I've done before, and to the point where for me it was more because I just didn't think I was lean enough, so I was trying to be more conservative. But then by the time I then like done prejudging, this was in 2021, done prejudging, I could tell I was like, yeah, I just even feel flat as well. Not even I didn't even need to look. I could tell to the point where I remember I was backstage. Oh, no, sorry, it was even outside the hall now because this was a BMBF qualifier. So you had the prejudging, then the night show. And I literally had got a big bag of pop chips, some orange juice, and what else did I have as well? Basically, literally just getting as much into me as possible, like as quick
Mm.
as possible. So, and then like the guy next to me who was battling out for first place at the time. I was looking at me going, mate, you're gonna blow it. What are you doing? And I was like, no. I need to fill out. And it was like, what are you on about? And like got on stage and like literally it was night and day in regards to how I had a bit of that fullness to it and not spilled over, but it just let me know that okay, you were actually leaner than you thought. And yeah, looking back at that, that was the first time I really understood how even in that short period of time where it can really be costly. And the same as you, it was like, yeah, I can't let that happen to my clients too, because as you know, prejudging is the main part of it as
Mm.
well. And so is that I feel like it kind of did cost a little bit, not that much. I feel like it cost a little bit, but I was like, yeah, can't do that again for clients. You really need to nail that for the prejudging. And that comes from the days before, like literally. So it's to the point where you know that, yeah, you've got enough in them. I think another one for me is miss these ones were not I'm not trying to blame the coach I was working with at the time, but it was just because it was stupid, anyways. But yeah, I had you know this, Anthony. My first coach was an IFBB pro
Mm.
back then, and yeah, he did all the stuff where you would think I was assisted, basically.
Mhm.
So yeah, I was having dandelion roots, vitamin chewing on vitamin C tablets, on the day, glass of wine the night before,
Nice.
shot,
Yeah.
2 shots of vodka pre-stage, as
Uh,
well, this or that. Done all those things, and all it ended up with me, and this was all in one for one show, literally all for one show. I'm not talking about throughout the time with him. This was all for one show. All it resulted in was I looked the worst I'd looked in 4 weeks period.
wow.
Leading up to the show, like it was the worst look ever. Like you can just
Mm.
imagine what that's going to be doing to my body. Bear in mind, I don't really drink,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
one, all right.
Mm.
Two as well as oh no, sorry, I forgot as well. The night before, yeah, go and have burger and fries. The
Mm.
night before as well.
Right.
Thankfully, he said go have pancakes in the morning. I was like, I'm not doing that. Like,
Right, right.
I don't even eat. Like, I've not been eating pancakes for a year. Like, what am I going to eat pancakes in
True.
the morning? But at this point, you can guess. Yeah, like this sounds like a classic. What anybody would tell an IVB, competitor or whatever who's got assistants here and there to be eating, that kind of stuff. Night before pre-show as well. Yeah, and it was literally just the worst look I've ever put on a stage. And it was my first time on stage. So thankfully it's all right. It was like, at least I did the worst thing ever on my first
Yeah.
stage appearance. But yeah, like those ones, yeah, I feel I'll tell them because it was a mistake, but yeah, I don't think anyone could ever do that in natural bodybuilding anymore, really.
Mm. Interesting.
I'll
Yeah.
give
That.
I'll give a personal account of my mistakes, and then some mistake that I used to make with clients. So I'll go for that one first because it's quite a straightforward one, and maybe not one that everybody does, and it should have been maybe intuitive as well. But when I first started coaching and working with clients, I'm very analytical and like detail orientated. So and I think this is it's a good thing to be able to back up what you're gonna like the decision making you do and the rationale on these things. But I used to overload clients with a bit too much information during peak week, and especially during a time when you're depleted and you've got like no energy to do anything anyway, and like cognitively you're not thinking straight, and so on and so forth. And I used to be like, right, okay, here's what we're going to manipulate. Here's the reason, like like a massive I don't know, like a massive email or something where I'm putting all in writing so they can refer to it and whatever. So that's one mistake I used to make with clients, just being and I think basically there is just telling them what we're going to do. I mean, if they want to question it, we can go through it, but not giving them all of that information at once. And hopefully they just ignored it and didn't stress them out. But I think that's something I don't do anymore. And with myself, so I was up until last year, I was always self-coached. So first competition in 2014 up until like the 2020, I competed as well, which was a mistake in and of itself. But last year was the first time I was actually working with a coach for a contest prep. So in 2014, I've alluded to this, but when we're talking before we start recording, like where I live in North Wales, it's quite rural. There's not many bodybuilders around here. In the gym that I trained at the time, there was only one other person who had competed, and he competed back in like the 90s or late 80s, 90s. So obviously his methods of competing, and he was assisted as well. His methods of competing were very different to what modern day methods are. But I just listened to him. So like everything he told me to do for that prep, I just did it. So I'm saying I was self-coached. Maybe I was like partly coached. And it was all the mistakes leading up to the prep. So I got to like my peak off-season weight and did I think it was a 16-week. So luckily it wasn't a 12-week, but it was a 16-week diet for the show. And then I was nowhere near ready. Like I was watery. Let's put it that way. And then like for the peak week, like just put in, I won't go into all of the things in detail, but like similar to what Josh was saying there, like every mistake you could make, like wine the night before. Luckily, I didn't do vodka before going on, but I know the vodka thing for vascularity. And when I went on stage, I looked awful. Like I say, like I couldn't see any. I was some decently lean, but a lot of that leanness had gone because the body was so stressed. And like when I was posing, I couldn't hold a pose because I couldn't like contract the muscle properly because there was no. I was too dehydrated, no
Mm.
sodium, so like I couldn't get a pump or anything like that. And like every time I hit a pose, I was like shaking like crazy. And I was like, "What? What's going on? This was
Mm.
supposed to work, but yeah, it didn't."
That's funny. Yeah, you guys have both gone down the alcohol before a show route. I've never done that. I think having a hangover on the day of a show would be like the worst feeling ever. But yeah, I've never done that before. But
Yeah,
one
no.
thing though, you did say, and this is you mentioned like the burger the day before. On my second show, I remember I kind of messed up that show. Once again, self-coached, but pushed my body too far. I had a massive like blowout meal that day, and I remember because I still remember in my head all of my kind of weigh-ins for my shows, and I put on just under 3 kilos from show day to the next day, so quite a substantial jump in weight, half a stone. But I looked better. There was no doubt about it. I looked a lot better. Yes, I was softer, but yeah, I looked so much better than the string bean that was on show on yeah, on stage the day before. So yeah, there is something to be said for yeah. There's definitely not something to be said, but there's a lesson there I think for those bodybuilders that look better after their cheat meal, and I think that lesson is they didn't peak properly. They didn't have enough sodium or didn't have enough carbs and fats or enough calories maybe during that peak. So yeah,
Or most
Hmm.
likely, and which is what probably I think it was because I think you're alluding to your 2015 finals. Is
yeah,
that
yeah.
so? Yeah, as we know, the main thing for you was you had just gone way too far with
Mm,
your stage lean. You had tipped over the edge. So
yeah,
something like a 3 kg, so-called binge for
yeah,
the next day was basically actually what you probably should have been, right? Basically.
yeah.
So that's probably why that worked then, and which is usually the reason why for a lot of people. So like same with me, after that crazy show, what's called that show where I did all that crazy stuff, just me being like the next couple of days, but me just being like relaxed and not doing tons of cardio and not eating all this kind of crazy stuff and just eating normally, and which was still way more than I needed to be having. I again, yes, same. I looked way better as well there as well. So yeah, no, 100%, yeah, definitely things like sodium, carbs. But I think for you, then it's for those people who push too far, and like you said, you have that stringy look where
Mm,
I think the best way, and this is why, like I said, I always just listen to old school natural bodybuilders who actually know what they're talking about. So for me, I'm talking like your likes of presidents of some of these federations. When they talk, I really want to hear. Or like if
mm,
David K talks, I want to hear that kind of stuff. And they will use words like, like literally you had this cloudy look on stage, or it was just no fullness was there, and like really stringy, that kind of stuff.
mm,
That is when they're like, you just basically did not carb up. Like you haven't filled out at all. You probably coming in thinking, oh, I really need to be lean, 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 and you went so far that the physique has now even got this weird cloudy look and just really stringent, like no life to it. But then you're clearly lean because we could faintly see, even like glute striations and stuff like that. But because there's not enough food in there, enough glycogen in there, enough sodium in there to push it, push that against the skin, it just things even started looking like you were holding fat, even though you
mm,
weren't. It's just literally lifeless. So yeah, no, this is where again I go back to the phrases thing. I feel like a lot of people just get led the wrong way because people love to use these words, these buzz phrases that are really not for natural building at
mm,
all, like not at all. And I guess oh, that's another one I just thought of, but you can decide when you want to go to it. I really want your guys' opinion on peak max. Like I need to
Disappointed.
things like peak max and all these other kind of like so-called supplement diuretics. Like I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
I've never heard of those. What are they?
You know, right, Dean, you
I've
must.
been out of bodybuilding for too long, clearly.
I've heard of them. I don't use them, but I've heard of them. But maybe they're more applicable to assisted guys. But maybe it's just a marketing thing to sell a product. But yeah, we'll maybe talk about it shortly.
But yeah, Anthony, real quick. Basically, apparently, it's meant to be like actual diuretic for natural, because it's not illegal one or anything like that. So,
I see.
like people, so that's why it's being like pushed as in regards to one of those kind of supplements which can actually help you like really get rid of water, but naturally,
So
even though we know water is a diuretic. But anyway,
from
Yeah.
a physiological point of view, and I always think it's always like a risk versus reward with peak week with things that you introduce. From a physiological point of view, you can't really intramuscular water. So I feel like I think you're probably going to allude to this as well. But with a natural guy, we shouldn't be pushing dehydration and dropping water, because where's it going to come from? If we've only got 30% subcutaneous and you're already lean, you've got 70% of water in that muscle. But yeah.
Yeah, interesting. I
It's like
think
I said, you just hit the nail on the head. It's how don't people get it? Like people don't get it. Like it actually physiologically, it's not gonna happen. Like what you're trying to get is not actually possible. And most of the time, what you think you may is when people like positively, this is what happened. A lot of it is placebo, but also you actually just accidentally did the right things in regards to everything else. And then you thought this other thing was the other little thing that trumped it, where it was like, no, you had a good
The
night's sleep after really
mm,
following up well enough. You hit the right amount of just loading it the right way, had a great night's sleep, woke up, and you were like, oh, I'm dry, I'm this is that, and everything.
mhm.
And we're not forgetting that, oh, actually, no, you did taper your steps, you did taper your cardio, you didn't try and do cardio, 10 hours of cardio leading into peak week, literally just before the show day and everything. So your body was not stressed. It just responded because it was just in a great place of just feeling calm and that kind of stuff.
Something I wanted to say before is a big mistake people make as well is, and you spoke about this with Anthony's prep last year, is when you're in prep, you've already dug a hole, like, and you need to climb out that hole for that peak week. And I think especially when you're doing like multiple shows, like potentially for the first show you do like a deplete and then a load, but once you've had that deplete, you don't need to necessarily deplete further, like every single show, deplete further, and dig a bigger hole, because you're only going to dig a bigger hole to climb out of. But yeah, I think that's a mistake people make for sure.
That's a good analogy. I like that actually. Yeah, because moving on to that topic of back-to-back shows, because I did two. You must have done quite a few last year, Dean, because I know you did like 10,000 shows last year, but I know I did 5 shows, and two of them were back-to-back weekends. I think might have been they were either 6 or 8 days apart, or maybe even 7, but they were back-to-back.
No,
And I
one of them was six because we had
was
the
it
weird
6?
one where, oh no, sorry, it was eight because we had the weird one where the NBA finals was Saturday and then the
Yes.
WNBF was Sunday. So yeah,
That
you're
was
right.
it. So 8 days, but pretty much, yeah, back to back. I think that can fall under the category of back to back shows. And yeah, it was, I undoubtedly looked better for the second one. And I think a big part of that is that stress element that Dean talked about earlier. So I was a lot less stressed going into that show because the pressure was off. I put a lot of pressure on myself going into the BNBF finals because the show before that I hadn't placed. And I thought, that's, I was just so disappointed in myself and not placing that I thought I had to kind of redeem myself. So there was a lot of pressure. And I also really wanted to win. I wanted to win and become British champion. Um, I didn't. I finished second, as we know, but the pressure was off. That story had finished. I could move on to the next show. And I think the fact that there was no pressure going into that show meant that I had, yeah, a lot less stress going into that week. Also, something as well, like I had, which not a lot of bodybuilders do, but it's popularized now as like an off-plan meal, isn't it? And I would never go crazy, but I had an off-plan meal after each of my shows, but they were reasonable. It was like a pepperoni pizza, one, maybe 2 pints of beer, and that was it. And it was literally like an extra 1,000 calories that day. But I think that actually had a slightly positive effect on how I looked in the subsequent days and indeed that peak. Um, so yeah, I think in terms of like strategies going into that, I think we ran the same strategy going into both. We had like a 2 day carb up going into both shows, an off-plan meal in between. But I think for me, it was the lower stress going into that second show that ended up yielding a better look for me. But yeah, what are your thoughts on like how to plan for? We'll start with you, Dean. On when you're doing back-to-back shows.
Yeah, so I'll use Josh as an example this year. So Josh did five. But anyway, we did 5 shows in 4 weekends. 2 of the shows were because the PCA finals were the qualifier was on Saturday, the finals was on the Sunday. So just circumstantial there. But so we and every yeah, to set the scene here a little bit, everybody's prep is different, and you always, of course, we have like a blueprint, a plan on paper, and then you've got to be adaptable. Like things might not go as planned, they might not get as lean as quickly as you would want to do, and you change on the variables and things, and you're doing things at the right pace. But sometimes to come in a bit quicker as well, so you can experiment with things. But anyway, with I think it's very similar to what Josh described before. With Josh's shows this season, we did for the first show, the BNBF show, we did do a traditional carb deplete, carb load, we trialed a couple of weekends before. We trialed like a mock carb load, not quite as aggressive as we were doing for the show, but just to see how his body responded. Were like how many days he was holding water for, not necessarily holding water, but what his look looked like the day after the carb load, 2 days after, 3 days after, just picking up all that data there really. And then I think what was important for Josh's shows is, again, I'm just kind of repeating what Josh said before, but for that first show we did the carb load, carb deplete, and then we knew from his look we didn't need to do a traditional deplete again or a traditional load for the next show. So that next show, it was more of like a linear load, so like a couple of days getting back to like baseline nutrition, activity wise. And I won't talk about too much about training and all those other variables, but activity wise, pretty much getting back to normal for a couple of days, and then dropping some fatigue through lowering activity, lowering training, and then eating into the show a little bit, but not massively aggressively. And then he brought in a very good look for that show. So we repeated that in a very similar way for the third show. And again, his look improved week on week, show to show. And then for the final show, we got to a point where the body was back to being like fairly like, let's say, healthy again, because we dropped a lot of stress in those 3 shows, those 3 back-to-back weekends. Again, from manipulating the training, increasing his food going into each show. So we could afford, for want of a better way of putting it, we could afford to have a bit more of a deplete and then more of an aggressive load. And luckily that did pay off for the final to the PCA show. And then we knew after that somewhat aggressive load, we held that look for the Sunday as well. And his look was slightly improved on Sunday. So I think that's very common, where if provided you've got the right strategy, the look should improve from show to show really. And I do find that with myself and with clients as well.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, what about you, Josh? That's
Yeah,
interesting.
no, so you guys are not going to hear anything too different. I'll literally just go to examples as well. But I think the main conclusion I want people to get from this is, and like literally as Dean's just said, is trust me, there is no perfect like way of just going through this. A lot of it is response. A lot of it is how the body's doing, how it's responding, especially if it's your first time actually doing a competitive season with that client. You're going to be learning. Unfortunately, you are. Even if you've worked off season with them, all these things, as much data as you've collected, it is so different when it comes to actually going to show from show to show. Because a lot of things happen, not just physiologically, psychologically, everything is changing and happening. And you have to go by, oh, the body's telling me this right now. I need to do this. So I think that's the first big lesson that I've learned in regards to that, because I've had a lot of examples now where, yeah, I've had a client just having 2 shows back to back. I've had ones who've had 3. So every weekend for 3 weeks back to back. Then ones with a break in between. And that showed me where, oh, you can actually repeat the same thing you did, for the whole deplete and then load. And that was a great look then. But then if they got a 2-week break or 1-week break, even for some, because again, the body just nice goes to the baseline quickly. Some might take a bit longer. You could do it again. So yeah, 100%. Like those are the key things there. Like I think people need to understand is a lot of it is responsive. You don't yes, you've got your game plans, but then there's also just like, oh, this is what it's telling me. And I think it's great Anthony mentioned this because, again, people, please understand. Anthony's not saying have off plan meals. That has to happen. But I give a little bit of background on Anthony as well. Like, I kid you not, I doubt Anthony is like when it comes to an ideal, like a client who is everything is being done to the T. Anthony is one of those people. All right. To the point where I don't think that people might, I know it's not such a crazy thing now, but he's the only person client I have where we don't talk about cardio because steps is all he needs. Like that is literally it. So now take away the stress factor of cardio now. You've taken that out. Okay. Bear in mind, again, with Anthony, we are ready. We're not doing anything to try and get ready leading into these peak weeks. He's already there to the point where our main thing is we're not trying to make sure he doesn't go over the edge. So guess what? Things like a low off plan is probably needed for someone like Anthony after a show day, after the stress of it and everything, and feeling better that he's done now, and also doing well enough, all those kind of things. You feeling a lot of alleviation, everything. And then now we're going to the Monday. Let's say we've done the show on Sunday. We're going to Monday already. Anthony's feeling, quite good. It got lots of things there. Even if he's gone up 2 kg, I know not to stress because again, all the previous times that we've been doing things, we know what's going to happen. Come the next day, his body's already back to baseline. Everything's already there. You're like, oh gosh, yeah, real quick. So now it's like the way I'm seeing it is now, okay, now I want to see the next day. If it keeps dropping or if it balloons up or whatever, I can know what we're doing here. The next, and this is why again, Anthony, you can you can, what's it called, say this as well. I never said to you on the Monday, this is exactly what we're doing. It was always we see how we get to Wednesday.
Yeah.
I said it there. Come to Wednesday, it's literally mirroring what we had the week before. Exactly the same, but even a little better because what Anthony's giving me feedback like I feel great. I'm
Mm.
less fatigued. I'm this and that, everything. So I'm like, we're doing it again. We're doing the exact same thing. Was what because literally his body's telling us it's fine and it's happy to do that. We start doing it, and again, all the way through it, it's doing the exact same thing. So we're like, yeah, this is easy. This is what's going to happen. Now,
This
flip that to another client where I made the mistake of thinking this is what it should be like for everyone, kind of thing as well. And I don't mind saying it because again, I've told the person that that was my mistake. It was on me. Darren, same year as Anthony last year, he had three shows back to back, very
Mhm.
different. He did Ireland, WMBF Ireland on a Sunday, BMBF on the Saturday, and then WMBF UK on the following Sunday. Now with Darren, it was a little bit different. We still had a little bit of like fat to get off, just a little bit there. And again, it doesn't mind me saying this, there were some on plans that weren't really planned as well. That kind of stuff happened. So taking all these factors, again, it wasn't like this is your plan, this is what we're doing. No, I'm also trying to be responsive here as well. It was the body was just all over the place. You know, some point I'm like, do we even try and like should we just try and quick 2 days again extra cardio in? Do I not? Because it looks like the body's stressed. He's flying from Ireland and back. He got, oh, I know it's a short flight, but all these little things. He's training, has to do legs before the flight at this other gym he never trains at. His
Mm.
body normally responds well post legs. This all these little factors came into play. Thankfully for BNBF finals, we nailed it. We were able to literally still replicate, but just less aggressive than the week before for Ireland, and it was a great look. Just came up against Theo that day, and yeah, you know, it's just not.
Mm.
It wasn't. It was kind of hard to beat him for that. Now, when for WBF UK, that is where I admitted to him I made a mistake because I thought his body was ready to continue responding the same way again. And whereas with that one, we 100% spilled over a bit. And that it wasn't because of he wasn't lean enough. It was actually because his body was under a lot more stress that week. Don't know what it was, but you know, because I didn't really add any cardio, we still try to taper things, all this kind of stuff, but it just wasn't responding right. And throw in as well, that was again last year was the unfortunate year where you know the whole show finished at 2 a.m.
Mm.
I don't even know the exact time because I had to leave at midnight because I was still driving back home as well. So I couldn't judge the pro show that year, which I still don't understand how the pros went on at that time. But again, thankfully, WNBF moved on from that, and we've got a great system now where we've got the 2 day shows, and everything is literally we got it nailed now. So it's not happening again. But again, that happened, and he stepped on stage around 11 p.m. And again, we could have got away with it if he stepped on 4 hours, 5 hours earlier. However, well, he was meant to be. However, by that time, I'm just like trying to hold a look that's impossible. And yeah, it just came up with a very, very, what we call the watery, cloudy, like not really fully there. Right, versus when you know literally a week ago and even 2 weeks ago, it was all there, you know, that kind of
Mm.
thing. So that's when I knew with Darren, he is someone where little changes affect like his body gets stressed really quickly, like basically
Mm.
there. So again, it was just understanding that you really can't call it as much as you might think things might be mirroring the previous week. It still might surprise you as well. And that's the other key thing I learned from that. And again, going with this year, Michael had to do three shows back to back.
Mm.
Thankfully, again, and now I have had the experience I can draw on as well. And again, with the person who they are, I know with Michael, as crazy as it is, he trains the legs. He's gonna go up in weight the next few days.
Mm.
Somebody think, oh, this is normal. No, like I said, I told you, some people are not, myself included. I lose weight after leg days. I
Mm.
always lose weight. Like, I could literally even have a refeed on that day as well. The next day I'm gonna be lighter. Apparently, when I train my lower body, which probably makes sense because I've got this short torso thing, but yeah, when I train the lower body, it takes a lot on me, you know, it's expenditure wise. So yeah, with Michael, I know he's gonna gain weight. So things like I need him to do his last leg day way earlier. We can't have to be dealing with that 4 days out, you know, 3 days out. So like he has to do like for those in betweens, he's stepping off stage. The next day has to be leg day. You know, it can't be any later. So things like that we had to do. The other thing with Michael is no matter what, I couldn't replicate the exact same peak with him as well. A lot of it for him was I'm trying to just make sure I match what we did previously. We couldn't improve. So I know you mentioned it, Dean, like you know, you're trying to improve week and week, and you can do that. With someone like Michael, his body just doesn't respond like that. We can't get better. This is what we got. And that's what happened. Literally, WMBF was his first show on that run, was his best look. And the rest, we literally were just holding as best as we can to the
Mm.
point where BMBF finals, again, I told him, I think it was probably, if we're being really picky, we're probably a little bit less than where we were 2 weeks ago. Just a little bit, not off, but it wasn't as good enough. But again, I don't mind saying this. And I told him it. I was like, mate, I'm not too bothered because that was the show where I knew that the competition was not going to be, unfortunately. And that's because you mentioned it. Everybody, it seems like everybody was at PC that weekend as well. So I knew that we could get away with that, being a little bit percentage off. Whereas in another lineup, which he had in MBW and in WMBF earlier, that low percent could have cost him a few placings, that
Yeah.
kind of thing. So taking all those things into account was important for his peaks because, like I said, with him, you just can't back to back. He needs a week, 2 weeks minimum to allow himself to get back to baseline. And again, he's
Mm.
another person. If he has an off plan, he's going up 3 kg, and it's not for the benefit.
Yeah.
It's not. Like the guy he's weird. He can blow up to a certain extent, but then he's also somewhere where in the off season he can also be looking very lean body composition wise. But when he has to get to that point. But if you are going from competition to going there, that can happen real quick. Like for
Yeah.
him,
Yeah.
it's just strange. So yeah, again, that's just a little insight again, guys, in regards to how things are different. And with myself, it's completely different. But I don't want to hog the mic too much.
Yeah, no, some
I,
really good points there. Oh, sorry, Dean. Yeah, I just wanted to say
yeah,
touch quickly this. Something I don't hear many people talk about, but I have heard a few out there, like Dirk Emmerich has mentioned this, and Eric Helms as well. I think it's like eating up into shows, as in you basically you get to a few weeks out and you're lean enough, and you basically hover at maintenance or there or thereabouts and eat up into your show. And I've never actually tried this strategy before, although I think it could be a really viable option for some. Certainly in terms of like stress removal, and as long as the look doesn't deteriorate, I think it could be a really good option for some athletes. Have you
yeah,
guys ever experimented with this at all?
yeah. I'll come in just on the back of what Joshua was saying before. Just say peaking, not peaking, sorry, not just peaking. Obviously, bodybuilding is very much an art and a science. So as much from the science point of view, you want to create like predictable conditions, or like a predictable look based on whatever it could be, like the objective data. So weigh-ins, maybe like tracking activity, water, like so specifically for peak week, tracking like water, doing test runs, taking the data from a test run before, but also from the art point of view. And I think what Joshua is very good at clearly is being able to look at a client on a day-to-day basis and going, right, okay, this is what we need to do today. This was the plan on paper. And I always say this to a client at the beginning of a peak week. We have a plan on paper, but every day we're going to check in, see how you're looking. Ideally, we're going to check in with visuals, check in with how you're doing, how you're feeling, how the previous day went, and then we can manipulate things based on that. But to what you just said, for some reason it's out of my mind. What was it? Oh yeah. So I did this in 2017 with
Mm.
myself unintentionally. So in 2017, I did 9 shows, and I actually planned to finish my season in May. It was going to be a very short season. It was March to May. I did 3 shows in that time,
Yeah.
and then what I was doing at the time in 2017, reverse dieting was a very popular phrase,
Yeah.
and reverse dieting was like, you can maintain. But at the time, the definition was somewhat that you could maintain your condition whilst increasing your calories or increasing your food, which is what I did somewhat successfully. So May came around, finished the show in May, and I was like, right, okay, going to go in the off season now and increase my calories, but not by a great deal, and like doing like incremental increases. So like a couple of weeks, I'd increase by a couple hundred calories, whatever it might be, and I
Mm.
was roughly maintaining the same weight. And I got to I think it was like mid-July or like early July, and I was still the same like weight I was, not weight, sorry, still the same condition what I was on stage, but like a little bit fuller, and the physique was looking a little bit healthier. So then I went, you know what I'm going to do? There's a show, I think it was like the Viamax Classic, and it was an outdoor show. So I was like, I'm just going to, and it was in Manchester, so not too far away. So I went, I'm just going to do that show. And I did the show and I did okay. And I was like, I'm feeling pretty good because my calories were in a better place. I'd spent a long time, even though I maintained condition, I spent a lot of time at maintenance. So like generally I was just feeling better. I wasn't like off season feeling good, but I was feeling better. And then there was a show in August and so on and so forth. So I ended up doing 9 shows in that season. And that's something where I wouldn't purposely do this, but it's something where I did have some success rate in 2017. But I think again, something that Josh said before, I did achieve like my best look. I think it was early September, And
Mm,
my last show was like towards the end of October. And I did get to a point when I was doing like show to show and I was finishing out the season where my look was fading as well. And it was like, if I could have maintained that look, it would have been a great outcome. But because I didn't have the right experience at the time, I think I was doing things in an incorrect way and I couldn't maintain that look. And I carried on to fade and fade from show to show. But yeah, that's an example where this isn't. I've not had the luxury, I would call it, working with a client where I've been able to do that. Where we've been ready like a month or like weeks and weeks in advance where we can do it. But I do think there is like I think it is potentially a good strategy, and then it's down to the client. If that client can get in condition
yeah.
and be willing to maintain that condition whilst you eat up going into the show. So yeah, it's a lot of like variables there. But
Yeah, that's interesting. You've done that, and kind of unplanned way, I guess. I'm
yeah, yeah.
curious to see. I think, yeah, for those athletes who can get quite lean, it's probably a viable option. I'm curious to see how my body would respond on a few weeks of like maintenance calories pre-show. Yeah,
Mhm.
I'll
I
speak to
can
Josh about that.
you go on there, and I can actually say that is so. Do you guys know Max Melchard? He won
He's
pro
yes, yeah,
show. He won the WNBF UK Pro Show.
yeah.
Mhm.
And he's also like basically on this great run right now. And he's going to be at the AMBF and then et cetera, all these crazy things. But yeah, do check him out if you don't know. But after that show, because I knew him from 2022, he competed
Mm,
that year as well, the same year as when me and James went out to LA. And he also competed in WNBF UK in 2022 as well. So that's when I first met him. Just get great guy, started talking to him and everything. This year, like when we were judging him, like it was like this conditioning is ridiculous. Like it's out of this world. But because I know him and I've been following him and talking to him, I was really intrigued to see how it looked in person. And I couldn't explain it because like I've seen great conditioning, but this was conditioning where it looked so fresh and like looked so like it was just the fullness was crazy and everything, but yet it was really crisp and dry. And I was like this is really interesting. And basically, in talking to him afterwards, it's literally exactly what you just said, Dean. And him and his coach, because this was their, I think, second year together now. And again, Max, a little bit of background, he's a dentist. He's got someone, he's a very calm person, and he's not a young person. He's got family and everything. I can tell he's meticulous, basically. I'm pretty sure he's everything, again, is to the T, even in the off season, all that kind of stuff. So in talking to him that year, bear in mind, WNBF UK was September. He basically said, my weight has barely moved. Like it's probably moved maybe half a pound or a pound since May.
well,
Like he is basically maintained that. And all they've done is,
Crazy.
again, he's like, now I'm eating 3,000 calories. And again, just a bit of insight. He's someone who's like 5'9", I want to say, like 5'9", 5'8", that kind of thing. So already you can tell that, okay, 3,000 calories, like 400 carbs, that kind of stuff. He's now maintaining, basically,
yeah.
like, really is maintaining. And they said all they do is, yeah, they might just, they don't really do crazy depletions anymore, anything like that. It's literally week on week, is how things need to be because they already know they don't need to chase anything more. They already
Mm,
know what if they went down 2 more pounds, what that looks like. They already know if they went up 2 more pounds, what that looks like. They're literally just maintaining for the whole of this season now. And so far, he's cleaning up and he's still got shows to come up. I think he might go all the way to WMF Worlds. So
mm,
I really want to see how this ends up because he'll be the first person I know who has actually done that for a whole year and it doesn't fade.
mm,
Actually, I want to know if it's possible that it doesn't fade or it actually does start to fade. But either way, but so far, so good to the point. And I'm intrigued because, like I said, it's something I would love to, possibly for myself, maybe with a client, that kind of thing, because I really do believe it might be the way to go in regards to if you really want to get that complete look where it's not just where I just got there and I was able to add some fullness. It wasn't a case of, I was about to be on the edge, but I had to really revive my physique last minute, that kind of stuff. So is it possible to do that for literally the whole season, to literally be so ready, like at 2 months out, 3 months out, and then just maintaining all the way through? But again, I think the key thing there is it also is a big factor is can the person mentally handle
Definitely.
it? Yeah, like I think for you, like you said, it was unplanned. I think that's why you were probably able to keep going
mm.
because you were never thinking it was going to happen anyways. Whereas some people, they're just mentally already just like, I'm done. Some,
Yeah.
how people are. They love to moan about how they're ready. I'm so lean. Oh my gosh, you don't understand. I'm dying. This is that. To the point where they're just so convinced about that. It's like I can't live here. But then
Yeah.
work your way back to maintenance. Why can't you? Like,
Yeah, that's easier than being a deficit. I think for bodybuilders as well, it's you're either gaining, maybe slowly, maybe not, or you're dieting. I think it's hard for some people just to sit at that kind of maintenance level for bodybuilders. But yeah, if you wanted to try it, I'm up for that next year. I kind of fancy a year of
Not prep
maintenance.
now. Get ready for
Yeah, I'll have to start now. Yeah, in fact, I'll start
like
right
I
now.
said, like you tick most of the boxes in regards to how meticulous you are. And I guess in going to the topic of today, like that technically, I feel like it will always be the perfect peak when
Mm,
you're already ready.
Mhm.
Like there's nothing else to do. Like it's
yeah.
literally while rolling in. And because again, you're just so ready, you also even know exactly different times of the day you're even better. And
Mm,
Mhm.
literally for me, that is the perfect thing. But
yeah.
and the person handle it mentally because, like you said, all those novelty things are not really going to be there, are they? It's
No,
like,
no.
yeah, obviously you can swap foods. This is that.
Mm,
I know again he's eating things like gnocchi and stuff like that.
mm,
Really like changing up his foods that again he knows his body digests well, etc. But reality is it's not going to be he's going to have a day where I need to have 1,000 grams of carbs
no,
or
no.
this crazy fats load or anything like that. Like none of that has to happen. So
I think
something
that can have its advantages too. I mean, I've seen even on this prep, Alberto Nunez has been eating pizza, during prep, which, yeah, I can relate to. I've certainly done that before, but for most bodybuilders, that's a bit of a faux pas. So,
Mhm.
yeah. I think there's something there. I think that if you're someone who's naturally quite lean or can get very lean, that idea of eating into a show is definitely a viable option. Um, I'd like to move on to like carb and sodium like manipulation a little bit here. I know this is quite a deep topic, and I think this is one area where there's such a broad spectrum as to how people react to both like carbs, sodium, less so like water probably, but um, with obviously with sodium, I'm a bit more like I think me and you have discovered, Josh, like sodium sensitive maybe than some individuals, but I can handle like carbs like pretty well. Um, and obviously we've discussed that kind of rapid backload strategy didn't quite work well for me, but then the 2 day carb up really did work well for me going into shows last year. I'd be curious to hear what kind of strategies, not so much strategies, but yeah, your guys' broad brush, like broad take on
Yeah.
like carbs and sodium on peak week, basically.
Yeah. I'll go sodium first because sodium's the one where I think there's more risk. We'll put it that way. More
Mm,
risk tampering with sodium and not really knowing how somebody's going to respond. Often, depending on the show, depending on the client, depending on the look and things like that. Often, I'll keep it relatively stable. It's always going to be during the loading phase, always going to be stable. Sodium is going to be required to store carbohydrates and like fluid retention and so on, keep blood pressure stable. Sometimes on a show day, so the main thing I like to do with sodium is on a show day in the morning. Sometimes I'll drop it a little bit if they're on later on in the day. I'll
yeah.
drop it a little bit for the first meal, first 2 meals maybe, and then as we're approaching showtime, I'll load it a little bit more, and then sometimes. I say this because it's not always easy to predict, but I find that we can generally get a little bit more vascularity, a little bit of a better pump. Those carbs we're having pre-stage are going like to use a little bit better.
Mm,
But I do feel like I very much speak cautiously with sodium because I feel like if you get it wrong, it's pretty drastic.
mm,
So I don't like to manipulate it massively. Sometimes again on show day, I'll drop it a little bit. Maybe it'll help a little bit with not storing quite as much, potentially not storing quite as much water, and then a little bit loading into the into showtime with the pump vascularity things like that. I feel like there's a bit of improvements there, but not enough to justify doing anything drastic with it. But maybe you guys have got it down to a T. But I'm not as confident on the sodium front. But and I think there's probably problems where people drop it completely and then don't load properly, can't load properly, and things like that. With carbohydrates, in an ideal world, I'll always work with a client and do a peak, not peak. What's the word? A
a mock.
a
Mm,
mock peak week, I should say, a mock peak week of some regard, not
yeah.
as aggressive with the deplete and load, but like something within those lines. And then I'll try and collect data in terms of visuals, in terms of how we're looking like on the day when we're loading with carbs, how we're looking after the carbs, like the day after, 2 days after, maybe 3 days after, because I do find with some people their best look is maybe like 2 days after a carb load, and for some reason they're just a little bit tighter. Maybe they're more sensitive to carbs. Maybe they spill over a touch with the carb load, but then they hold that fullness and drop that water and look better a couple of days after. So like, and that obviously just informs when we're going to load the carbs on the peak week, and of course during that like mock period, and knowing what their baseline carbs are and generally how they're looking, we'll generally have an idea of what the carbs are going to be. And I would say one other thing I like to do, I know we might talk about training shortly, is also from a training point of view, I try and mimic, if we do a mock peak week, for example, I try and predict what time they're going to be on stage. And I try, if we can, to mimic a training session around that time to kind of like mimic, like, okay, that's going to be your pumping up backstage. And then seeing how, so getting some post-workout visuals, seeing how they're looking post-workout after the carb load potentially and the potential time, because I think it's a lesser thing, and maybe you don't always get the opportunity to do it with every client because it depends on most circumstances. But if you can manipulate the time a client's going to train, you can kind of get the body used to training at a certain time where they might be on stage. And maybe this is like a 0.5% thing, but maybe the body's going to react a little bit better being used to training or being used to doing something physical during that time that they're going to be on stage. Obviously, competing at like 11 p.m. at night, I don't know what was going on there, but you can't really do that one. But yeah. But that's like broad stroke sodium carbs, generally what my approach.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Yeah.
What about you, Josh?
Yeah, I mean, with me, you know this, Anthony. It's I think with sodium, more probably towards during the prep, I'm more like interested in what's happening basically. So like, for example, if sodium's like really high, does it change things? Does it make a weird is there something that's going to respond? Your body's going to respond in a weird way. Are you one of those people where we need to keep sodium low to keep the fat loss going for some weird reason, that kind of stuff? Because again, it does happen with some people. That's when I'm more keen on sodium. Now, when it comes to peak week, I really just want to, as much as possible, keep that as steady as we can. Whatever we know the body is happy with, I don't want to mess with that. So I don't want to do. The other key thing I do is, and with the carbs is again, like I've already discussed already. I do like to kind of load them in. I don't like to do it too much of what's it called, the front loading, like some people do. I'm not too keen on that because I'm not, again, I'm just going by what we've been doing with the athlete at the time. I've never really seen anyone who looks better. Like let's say they had the carbs 4 days ago and then they actually looking their best. Never really seen that. So I always find it interesting when people are saying the front loading and this is that and everything, and they're like, yeah, this was look great. And again, I might just be blind, and maybe the lighting was different or whatever. This is that, but I've seen them on that stage, and I'm like, yeah, they don't look good. Like I don't. I know that picture you put up on like 2 days ago. That looked on the money. This don't look like it. Like this is there. So yeah, I'm always a bit skeptical when people do all the whole front loading with cars. I definitely like to either just keep it simple, linear, like, or just maintaining it, or you can backload a bit, but not too crazy as well, because some people don't respond well to that. But those are usually the what I do with carbs there. The other thing I'll put alongside with those two things, sodium and water, is water. Sorry,
Yeah.
water. Sodium, carbs,
Yeah.
water as well. I do like to play around with water a bit. I do like to put a lot, like increase the water a bit going into, as the peak week goes, but then just tapering it a little bit towards the end to about what you're normally used to, that kind of thing. I do like to do that most and sometimes, just simply because again, like I am not afraid about water of water. Why? Because it's a diuretic. I don't care who you are. It's not going to make you hold water. It's not. It's going to make you pee a lot. It might ruin your sleep. So this is why things I might be looking into that, that kind of thing. And the other thing as well is that, yeah, I don't want you chugging a liter of water before you step on stage. Like, what's the point? Like, I don't want you thinking,
Yeah.
I don't want you thinking about going to the toilet before you step on stage. But, like when it comes to leading into it and everything, again, as we already mentioned, no natural athlete should be afraid of water. I'm sorry. I don't. I just don't believe in that. But I do like to like increase it a bit. Maybe when the carbs are going up, maybe it's the old school thing in me that I've heard, people likes of like, what's it called? Anyway, I don't need to say the names, but a lot of some of the old school natural bodybuilders, and also like some of them who are like in charge of federations now, or judges, etc. Like the whole like when you load the carbs, you also load the water so that the carbs can move around. Sounds silly, but I kind of like it. I like that placebo thought, and I think my clients like it too. This is that, especially when they're doing their last bit of that pump up session. That upper body pump. The session as well. They're like, oh look, the carbs are moving, and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, it sounds silly. There's no actual science to this, but I like the idea of it. And again, I've had no problems with that to the day where I've had some clients where they'll be like, it's so weird. How come, like, I'm drinking so much water, but I'm not actually feeling bloated. I'm not that.
Mm.
This, that. I'm like, you shouldn't. It's a
No,
diabetic.
no. It's because of like what you hear about like Hollywood diets and actors who get in somewhat decent shape for movies, and they always talk about firstly like their chicken and broccoli diets, which is just I think steroids, but also I think they talk about cutting water all the time. It's like why? Hugh Jackman, I've heard maybe not from him directly, but his diet would be one of well, firstly ridiculous calories, 6,000 calories a day, which is just pure nonsense. He was
That's what he
never
says. Yeah, yeah.
never on that many calories. Like he was on 2,000 calories a day, surely. But then he talks about cutting water. I'm thinking, but why would anyone cut water to dehydrate? It's just pure
I am
nonsense.
happy to say this on here, and not because I don't think the whole world's going to hear it. So it's not like no one's going to hear it. But even if there's some other whole world did, yeah, please come at me. I'm sorry.
Mm,
When there's stuff like that, yeah, they're on steroids. It's 100%.
yeah, yeah,
Said
yeah.
we know if you're doing certain strategies that literally are for someone who is an enhanced athlete,
Mm,
probably are using assistance. This is that.
mm.
I mean, like for example, like you got your likes of I forgot his name, Tom Hanks. What's it called? What's the movie he got that Oscar for where he was stranded on the
Oh,
island?
Castaway.
Oh, passed away. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
His crazy diet. What was his crazy diet for that? Literally eating nothing. Was it bacon and just cayenne pepper and whatever, just to like that was basically zero carbs, just fats and a little bit of protein and the most minimal to lose weight. Now, did he look like a ripped bodybuilder? No,
Yeah.
he looked like he was malnourished and really
Mhm.
skinny, obviously, which is meant to look for the part.
Yeah.
Now, if you're telling me some of these guys are, and obviously cut water as well and everything, some of the guys are cutting water and everything like that, but yeah, Hugh Jackman looks so ripped for, Wolverine and everything like that. And then, but then on top of that, he's somehow eating 6,000 calories. And it's
Mm.
like,
and some of it,
cutting that up.
yeah, and he'll talk about it, and it's like some of the stuff like Hugh Jackman. I've heard him talk about it, and he's talking about eating chicken and broccoli, or chicken and rice and broccoli, and 6,000 calories. If you try and eat 6,000 calories of chicken, rice, and broccoli,
My
and
God.
then and he, he's gaining weight but losing fat for the role and blah blah blah. It's just yeah, obviously what's going on.
Chris Hemsworth was another one, like for
Mm.
Thor, the stuff that he had to do. And you're just like, Michael B. Jordan, and
Yeah,
honestly, I actually don't think it's the actor. I actually just think the
yeah,
person doing it for them is just feeding them a lot of bull.
yeah.
Mm.
And because they don't know whatever, they're just going by what you're being told. And because again, if I'm being paid $2 million, like for a movie role, you telling me I need to eat grass to get ready for the part. I will eat it. Like this is
Mm.
that. Like I will. I'm pretty sure. Again, we're talking about the most ideal clients, the ones that nail it to the T. There's nothing better than someone so motivated because they got like $1 million waiting for them. Like,
Mm.
or not even waiting. It's already there. Like it's already in the bank account. And all you have to do is follow this nutritionist, follow this so-called world-class trainer, whatever this is that. They're gonna do it. So if they're being told you're having 6,000 calories here, and
Mm.
actually what they're calculating is it's not the actual macros of the food, but they're just calculating what it says in the pack. It's 500 grams of rice. So, oh yeah, that must be 500 calories there.
I don't know how they come to these conclusions because they're not even in the realms of like possibility. It's like
Yeah, it's just
6,000 calories is just
you,
ridiculous, and
And
he's
you're
not
not
even a
Ronnie
big
Coleman, so
guy.
how?
Yeah, 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 exactly. I mean, he was probably on 6,000 calories at his peak. They're like 300 pounds bulking, but or
In the
more than
video
that.
of Jay Cutler trying to eat stuff like that, like waking up at 5 a.m. to start and like at midnight to eat it, and the exhaustion of it and the
Mm.
size of the portions. And like you said, chicken, rice, and broccoli. Like you
Yeah. Oh God.
eating 20 kgs of rice. Like, please
Mm.
explain. Like,
Yeah, I'm eating 3,500 calories a day now, and I have done for the entire year. And I can tell you, it's not chicken and rice and broccoli. And
yeah.
even then, it's a struggle. I'm like, I can't be bothered to eat anymore. I'm done with food.
Something you said, Josh, about and sorry, Anthony said it as well. I think there's something to be said. So I do load water as well, in especially on those carb loading days. There's something to be said for using the right phrases when you're talking to a client and you kind of managing their expectation and giving them the kind of information so they know what they're looking for. So, for example, when you say, get the carbs moving around. So when we do that pump up session, we're looking for like intuitively, and like, right, okay, I need to get a good pump, get those carbs, get the water in the muscle, and whether it's a bit of bro science or whatever you want to call it, but I do think that works as well. Like I think it's the right approach.
yeah,
Mm. Yeah,
Okay.
makes sense.
I think just before we wherever we go on to net, I think, oh, we're probably ending. I don't know, but yeah, 100%. I think we're really now starting to touch on when it comes to because obviously we all coach or we have coached, and I think the other key thing we've said it like fleetingly earlier, placebo.
Mhm.
100%. There's certain phrases, certain things if you say them to the client at the right time, it's just going to help them relax. And
Yeah,
we all
yeah,
know a relaxed client is going to lead to probably the best look on stage.
yeah.
And if you time it at the right time and say the right thing, and it's something they're not, you're not lying to them, but you're just basically saying it in a way that sounds even better.
Mm.
So I've never told my client we're drying out. I have said you're going to wake up in the morning very dry. You know,
Yeah.
and that's because I know for a fact, because one, they're getting a good night's sleep. All right. And even if they don't, it doesn't matter because hey, the food is going to digest a bit more or whatever. Yes, you're a little bit more fuller in the evening because again, some of them, because again, I get them to take a picture, before they go to bed, literally before show day, or literally after one of the first carb loads or the second day carb load. And I want to see it slightly, possibly spilled, slightly too full or just on the
Mm.
money. Like, but to them, they're just thinking, "Oh my gosh, like the food is pushing up against. This is a lot. Like this is that." And they might, and I can tell some in their check-ins, their faces are like, because they're not sure. They're thinking, I don't know about this look. I don't know if the lighting might not be great in the hotel, all these kind of things. But again, because I've had experience of this, I'm like, nah, that's great. I'm like, you're gonna wake up on the money. Don't you worry. You're gonna wake up so dry. And lo and behold, they do. And then you get that message going, you don't believe it. I look so great. Like, oh my gosh, I'm so
Yeah.
dry. Oh, I'm ready now. I was so worried yesterday. This, that. I'm like, I kind of just used what I knew would happen. And I've kind of just wanted to get you into that uplifting feeling for show
Yeah.
day, which is always great to have. Because what last thing you want is someone on show they going, I don't know, this is that, whatever. And also like get them to get that picture in really good lighting. So like yeah, really
Mm.
wherever it is, find it, like make sure that kind of thing. And if they can't, again, just reassure them, don't worry, I'm gonna come and see you, you see, like because I'll get them to stand in the great lighting or somewhere and show they like Anthony knows, Leatherhead Theatre. There's just
Mm.
that one place, where it's
Yeah.
especially if it's a good sunny day, it is golden in regards
Mm.
to like, really good like half natty lighting and everything, and just make the pop because with your tan as well, and even though you're not glazed yet, it literally has you thinking, okay, yeah, I'm on the money, which it
Mhm.
should because you're about to step on stage when all the lights are going to be times better. So why not look close to something like that? Have a little like preview, so to say. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think the placebo, but not lying,
Not lying. Yeah. Yeah.
and things, yeah, you're gonna be saying and doing just to like again, it helps the
Yeah.
client reassure them because as we all know, the headspace at that time, it's weird.
Mm.
Mhm.
You're one of those people who's very high, very critical of yourself. It's hard to always believe you're on the money. It's hard to always believe you're there and all that kind of thing.
And that first impression, when they walk out on stage, first impression is so important. Those first set of quarter turns, if they go on there not full of confidence and they're slouching, they're not hitting the posing properly, they're not like taking up space on stage, they're gonna get overlooked. Versus if they go on there knowing they're on the money, like knowing they're looking great, feeling confident, like it's gonna make a massive difference in those quarter turns.
100%.
Yeah. So true.
And this is where I go back to again. I'm not lying though. Like,
Mm.
again, some of my clients will tell you when we know we're not on the money. I'm not telling them they're on the money. I'm not trying to build this fake it till you make it. No, 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 because it's gonna hurt when you literally get moved all the way out. Like it's not happening. That's there.
Mhm.
Mm.
But I will tell them like, okay, no, we really need to present. Like we really need to like work on just hide those weaknesses as best as possible. Like this is
Mm.
that, etc. Because yeah, we rushed into this, to get into. We just want to get this qualification, etc. We know what we're really aiming for, but for this one here, you're not on the money, but this is what we need to do. This is what we need to focus on. Da, 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 da. Definitely do not grab any of those sweets backstage, thinking you need extra carbs or whatever that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
All these kind of things. Don't cut your water. Don't you dare do anything. But please just do as I say because we're really trying to get as much as we can from us not being completely on, so that we don't make it worse. That kind of thing. So again, like yeah, say the right things and all that, but then there's also just like don't lie because it's gonna be a bit strange. And I've seen it as well, especially as a judge. I'm so baffled when I get some people like sometimes afterwards they are literally
Yeah.
thinking they've been robbed or
Mm.
something. I'm like, why? Like, I'm sorry, like you didn't place because you didn't place. I'm not gonna say that they're terrible, but I'm just like I'm hearing them and I can tell they're just like really disappointed and just thinking
Mm.
like you're so wrong, judge. And I'm like,
Mm.
hey, then that's fine. That's my opinion, I guess. So there.
Yeah,
But, yeah. Whereas I'm just like, what has been told? What have you been told? Like,
yeah,
that's what I want to know because clearly you haven't been, you're not really been, getting the full picture here, so to say.
yeah. No, that's true. I think last area that we can quickly delve into. I don't think we need to spend too long on this because I think we all kind of feel the same about this. Is like training during peak week. I'll be curious to hear both of your takes on this. So I'm definitely willing to try like a slightly more aggressive. How to say aggressive? Devolume a bit less during peak because obviously the typical role, not the typical role, the bodybuilders will typically train a bit less volume, less intensity during peak week. I've noticed that because I had a devolume week last week, just my lower body, and my legs look a lot flatter when I have a devolume week. And now I know I'm obviously nowhere near stage lean now, but they definitely look, yeah, a lot less full, a lot more flat. So I'm curious to maybe push things a bit more at peak week, provided I don't train legs too close to show day. I'll be curious to hear if you guys ever experimented with not easing off the gas that much during peak week when it comes to training. I'll start with you, Dean.
Yeah, so not for myself personally. I think I've I can see the utility of it, and I think this comes down to potentially if a client loves consistency and if you're not doing like a really traditional peak week with them, maybe it's like a show to show, maybe keeping training. And I suppose this is something I did with Josh because we did 4 shows back to back weekends. From a training point of view, we didn't want to do. I didn't want to do every single week. We like have like a really big D volume and then dropping loads of stress going into the show. So in that scenario, we kept training somewhat more consistent or similar to usual. But I think you guys are probably the same. Again, like a broad stroke thing here would be legs are always furthest away from show day. Back is generally then furthest away, and then like it's essentially going from like the bigger muscle groups to the smaller muscle groups. And then you do usually what I do is like after the training week is complete, we'll do like an upper body pump session as like the final session where we're not trying to create any muscle damage. There's one thing I want to touch on very briefly, and maybe we won't expand on this too much, but Eric Helms, I don't know if you ever heard Eric talking about this. I don't know if he still does it now. A couple of seasons ago, he was talking about his side delts, and he used to intentionally create loads of like train his side delts like the day before the show to try and create loads of inflammation, so that it creates like a wider look on stage. Obviously, delts looking a bit more capped. I've not tried that because I don't want to, but that's like I'd be interested to know if you got any thoughts on that one, really.
Interesting.
But yeah.
Oh, that sounds very interesting. And I think that's again, there's something that I do what's it called I want to also mention as well because I feel like definitely in the past year this year in particular, I've seen a lot more people doing training literally just the day before.
Cool. Yeah.
Uh the thing. I still don't do it. I still don't have my clients do it because I still believe they need that day to just, rest because it never seems to be a good day to even get a session in. I just feel like I don't really see the reward. I feel more risk
Mm.
there going into it. But I'm seeing people doing leg extensions now, like stuff like that, even day before and everything. And when I say people, I'm talking like people you would think surely know a bit better, right? But they're willing to really expand this. And when you mention something like Eric there, like I think maybe that's probably why. Maybe there's been other stuff where a lot of people who we kind of
Mm.
do listen to have been trying a lot of different things now in regards to this. So yeah, that's very interesting. But I don't know if I'll be experimenting with that. Again, I get what Eric is saying there in regards to the delts being more inflamed. But then my worry is when you come up with other poses, do you get the striations and the delts?
Exactly. Yeah.
That we like in natural bodybuilding. Because again, let's be honest here, we're not open bodybuilders in the IFBB here, where it's not about the detail that much. You can come in more it's big and more round and bubbly and everything. But if naturally that's not your physique anyways, and then you lose some lines, is it worth it? Is the payoff
Mm.
there? 100% for that front relax, you want cap that. It's
Mm.
not looking at your delt striations. It's nice to see that silhouette a bit more if it gives you that. So yeah, 100%. That's interesting, and yeah, I guess it'd be something. Well, yeah, we'll see how that goes. But for me, yeah, in regards to peak weight training, 100% hear what Anthony's saying there, and something again I've noticed it can actually work well with some people. Again, it just differs, and I know we say this a lot, but this is the life of being a coach. A lot of your answers are gonna be it depends, when it comes
Mm.
to the person. I'm someone where when since 2016 to like 2021, I was more of ease off, completely ease off. Like you really want to ease off, to the point where you're deloading pretty much as well, that kind of thing. Then I started going into more of a devolume approach because the reason behind that is again just a lot of with myself and noticing with other people. It's like you've trained a certain way for all this time.
Mm,
And there's never been a problem with the look at the end of the week as well. Like, even if anything, it's good. Like your body likes it and everything. Why do you want to ease off so much unless you really have built up so much fatigue? Like, like unless it literally is naturally a week where you're gonna, take away a lot of volume, take away a lot of the load, a lot of the intensity, then yeah, okay. But then if it's just a normal week, like the peak week is falling on just a normal week and you're not ridiculously fatigued, and you got other things to take away fatigue. You got maybe the cardio, maybe just simply the person has because they this week they're doing less of night shifts or whatever. They get to rest more and everything. That's gonna be happening anyways. Like again, that's why I've played a bit more with them keeping the intensity up. I might just it's not full D volume, but maybe just like like, you don't need to do 4 sets of squats. On that peak week. It's again where two is fine, like, but with the same intensity and everything, still, again, they enjoy it as well. They naturally, someone goes at it, and then again, factor in how much do they get a lot of inflammation from that muscle group. Too close to the show. Again, we've mentioned like doing that a lot earlier, depending on what the muscle group is. If it's a bigger muscle group, I've had clients where, yeah, show day Saturday or Sunday, they can still train legs on Thursday. Yeah,
mm,
it don't get crazy inflamed. Like literally, post workout shots, the detail is as crazy as it was, in beforehand. It's just the way it is. Not saying they didn't train hard. It's just the way it is. Versus someone where, yeah, you can literally even tell as the session's done, no lines, it's all blurred, it is
mm,
pumped full of blood, and that's going to take like 3 days to settle down,
mm.
etc. That kind of thing. And then on top of that is it gets even more fresher like 5 days later. So you have to factor that in. So yeah, 100%. I'm just one of the people where again, it is by I play it by how things have been responding usually. But I'm definitely more in that camp of it's not really a full D volume. So in regards to the sets and everything you're taking down the reps, but we're definitely keeping intensity there.
Mm,
We're going to keep it there and about. I don't want you easing off completely. Because again, I've had the weird thing where I've had somebody, he actually pick up a niggle because of just backing up so much. Like the body was just, it was almost like, I don't know what's going on here. And then by doing things a little bit less, it then just had a little, like the little twinge in the muscle group around one of those muscle groups. And it was just like, oh, yeah, that's weird. How am I getting this when I'm easing off? So
mm.
I guess, yeah, like I said, you try not to change too much sometimes as well, in regards to the peak week training. And you're just hoping again, because a lot of this is just you want to see what happens the next day, and then you can then respond again, and go from there. But apart from that, yeah, I don't think I'll ever be someone who's getting a client to train the day before, and I wouldn't be having them going completely easing off because again, it's like you've done all this to build a muscle and maintain it. I don't want you to then completely come off the gas just because we're getting ready for peak week. But of course, yes, if you're someone who's just doing so much crazy stuff, and I'm trying my hardest throughout the whole prep to hold you back, I
Mm,
then I might be like,
Yeah.
yeah, please, if you can just do 1 set. It's 1 set,
mm.
please, like don't do any more because they just do way too much.
It's very individual for sure. But I think, yeah, yeah. I tend to devolume a few more reps in reserve, or maybe an extra rep in reserve compared to like a standard week and a bit less volume, and that's it. And then, yeah, pay special attention to proximity of leg day before the show.
Mm.
But yeah, I think that kind of wraps things up nicely. I think the main points I say are don't do anything crazy in peak week. Use refeeds as like a little experiment. I think that's a good one because obviously you're going to gather some really important data there on how your body responds to carbs, to sodium, to water, etc. And yeah, just stay as stress free as possible. But yeah, I don't know if you guys had any closing thoughts, but that was a lot of fun.
My main one would just be encapsulating everything we said. It is an art and a science. It's not
Mm,
completely data driven, but it's also not completely okay. I'm going to look at you, and then we're going to go bottle of wine the night before, burgers, blah blah blah. It's a blend of both, really. Yeah.
Yeah, again, literally both of what you just said there, literally back all of that. I mean, I wish I could just look at someone and be able to go, oh yeah, yeah, this, that, this much carb, but no, it don't really work like that. It might seem like it when I'm telling you, like I said, the whole, oh, you're gonna wake up so much drier, all that kind of stuff. So yeah,
Yeah.
it might seem like it, but yes, I know we love it in this buzzworld, social media this day. We have cool names like the Wizard, the Magician, coaches this and that, or on all those things. Yeah, it wasn't a trick. It was literally
Mm,
that, yeah, they got the data. They've done all the adding up of everything. They've been able to see you so many times. Yeah, guess what? All those annoying checkings that you don't like doing all that time. Yeah, they got a good idea.
mm,
They've seen you at your worst, no pump. They know you're gonna look better with a pump, that kind of stuff, So yeah, don't, like I said, like I started with, don't hang your hat on it. It shouldn't be the main thing that's gonna make you win.
yeah, yeah,
Or make you look your best, basically. It shouldn't be. A lot of that, as we started with, was, I think you said, was it, Anthony? 90% of the job should be done. I
yeah,
might even say
yeah,
98%.
yeah,
How
yeah.
much I really do not pin on peak week. And I might be crazy, but that's just me.
No, it's most of the work, isn't it? It really is. Yeah. Well, look, yeah, this has been a lot of fun, guys. Thank you for joining me. We'll do another one of these soon. And yeah, thank you guys for watching and for listening. And we will see you next time. Cheers.